So we're doing this order doing it?
Yeah, that's good. So Chris will go first. Yep, perfect.
Hi, Gabe.
Good morning.
Hey, everybody, it's Gabrielle Lyon.
Hey, everybody.
All right, let us begin. Thank you for attending the most recent meetup of the Connect Chicago meetup group. We're focusing today on the civic innovation movement here in Chicago. The sort of news peg is that we have the National Day of Civic Hacking going on this weekend. And Smart Chicago runs a lot of the programming, and Christopher Whitaker, who's a consultant here and also is the Code for America Brigade captain, is personally running a lot of stuff tomorrow. I'll be down at the Adelaide Planetarium, and we got all sorts of stuff going on everywhere. The reason it's relevant to this group is that you guys run centers that are essential to digital literacy, which can lead to, and as far as we're concerned, especially here at Smart Chicago, is an essential component of consuming these civic apps, participating in creating these civic apps, and generally spreading the ability to make them be a part of your life. So we wanted to emphasize that, and we want to hear from you, obviously, about who you've got in your centers, who may be a part, be able to be a part of this movement. So our format for today is that first we're going to hear from Christopher Whitaker. He's going to give a primer on the movement here in Chicago, which is actually leading the nation, and for a number of reasons. And then hear from Danielle Demerer from the City Department of Innovation and Technology, who has been working in this space for a long time and has been leading a lot of the city's efforts around, public computing as well as civic innovation. So she is one of the few people who has been at the center of, the municipal government and public computing and civic innovation, which again is one of the reasons why I think that we're leaders in the country, not just because we have a lot of developers making stuff, but because we have at the policy level in the city pulling all of this together into a cohesive strategy. So Chris, without further ado, we've got Christopher Whitaker. So Christopher.
Hello.
Yay.
Get my there we go. Hi, my name is Christopher Whitaker. I am a consultant here at Smart Chicago Collaborative and the Code for America Brigade captain for the City of Chicago. The first thing I always ask when I give these, this sort of introductory course is, how many of you are developers, coders, have GitHub accounts? So the second thing I always do is I tell people my deepest, darkest secret. And that is that I actually am not a developer. I do not know how to code. I am terrible at Ruby, and you do not want me trying to program your stuff because I will break things. I got into civic innovation sort of from the opposite direction. The height of the recession, economies crashed, thousands of people unemployed in the city of Chicago, and the state of Illinois hires me to work in a field office to help people with their unemployment claims, help them with the problems they're having with their unemployment insurance, and generally be sort of the human face of the department. So first day of work, went to the office in Lawrence and Western, sat down at my desk, started on my computer for the first time, waited about 5 minutes because the computer's from 1995, it has one of these big box monitors. Finally opened up the system that was given to me in order to help my friends and neighbors with their unemployment insurance, and was greeted by a DOS screen. sort of the green text, it blinked at me. Turns out the system that I was using to administer this public program was built in 1975. It wasn't a automatic real-time process. So anything that I did, enter a claim, fix a problem, had to wait for an overnight process. And the only way to know that what I did went through was to come in early the next morning and print out literally a ream of paper. Then go through line by line by line to make sure that nothing rejected. Because if it rejects, people don't get their unemployment check, people get very agitated, they come back to the office and yell at me. Or they yell at somebody else, and then I have to come up and say, okay, we'll fix it, we'll fix it, we'll fix it. So given sort of the ancientness of the technology and the fact that I carry around this in my pocket, which lets me do all sorts of incredible things, like watch cat videos on the L, I'm like, okay, I have something in my pocket for personal use that is far more powerful than the stuff that I have to use to administer public services. So I got into technology as sort of a way to try to figure out a way to do my own job better. So I started going to hackathons, technology events, and started hearing terms like Ruby and Python, and my first reaction was, why is everyone talking about jewelry and snakes? So I got into Code for America, and directly through that started working for Dan O'Neill at the Smart Chicago Collaborative, and so now I work as a consultant, sort of doing a lot of translating between the technology side and the nonprofit side, not just telling the nonprofits about the technology, but telling the technology folks about the work that nonprofits and governments do. So I always start out with that. About maybe a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, at the OpenGov Hack Nights that happen every Tuesday at 1871, Derek and I got together and said, maybe we should do sort of an orientation for all the new people that are coming in, so they won't be completely lost when they first enter. So we start out with open data. So before the data portal, whenever city employees would enter anything into the system, when they towed your car, when they inspected a restaurant, when they filled a pothole, it would go into a system and it would sit. And the only way to find out is that you either have to call City Hall, or worse, fill out a Freedom of Information Act request. Not very easy to do, kind of a pain in the butt. So when Rahm Emanuel was elected, he implemented an open data policy, and in large parts to the Department of Innovation and Technology. Now, whenever the city does something, it automatically goes onto the portal. So that means that when they fill a pothole, when you report graffiti, all of that gets uploaded to the portal. Energy usage by census block, traffic congestion, whether or not they towed your car, all this gets put up on the data portal. So for instance, this is the towed vehicle data set. It's got the date, make, model, style, license plate, where they towed it to, all really good stuff. So if you're in the city of Chicago and your car gets towed, you can look here to see if your car's towed. But, this is a giant spreadsheet in the sky. You kind of have to know about it. It's very inside baseball. It's not the easiest, most user-friendly way to get information from the city. So what a guy named Scott Robin did was he created a website called wasmycartowed.com. It's very simple. It's just one sentence. My car with license plate, blah, 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 was parked in Chicago and now I can't find it. Was it towed or relocated? Yes. Your car was towed to this address on this day. Please call this number to get it back. This is civic hacking in a nutshell. It's taking open government data that's been released, available to anybody for free, and using it to solve a civic problem or to educate about a civic issue. The second thing that's real huge in the civic innovation world is the concept of open source. So you're taking a test, the professor says, it's an open book test. You can look at each other's papers, you can sort of see what everybody else is doing. It makes the test really easy to take. Open source is kind of the same way. So this is a site called GitHub. It's a website where developers can post code just like they were taken an open book test. Sort of they have a text file to say, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm thinking, this is the background. They have all the code that makes it work right up here on the site. And it makes it very easy to sort of see what everyone's doing. The reason why open source is important because if we're making apps that are supposed to be helping solve city problems, we don't want those just to be Chicago-centric. We want those solutions to be useful everywhere. So a few years ago, the Chicago Department of Public Health came to an OpenGov Hack Night and said, you know, flu season's coming up. We think it's going to be a particularly rough one this year. We'd really like a way to make it easy for people to find where to get a flu shot. So a guy named Tom Capari built a site called the Chicago Flu Shot app at chicagoflushots.org and made it real simple to figure out where to get a flu shot. You could look up the sign on your phone. You could use the phone's GPS to give you transit directions, walking directions or driving directions to your nearest flu shot. In later versions, he included not only the shots that the city of Chicago was giving out, but also places where you could just purchase a flu shot from Walgreens, CVS. Everybody loved it. The city adopted it. Smart Chicago Collaborative hosted it on its servers. Everybody's happy. Well, a couple weeks later after this was released, my counterpart in Boston, Harlan Weber, shoots me an email and says, hey, we've got a bit of an issue here. Our mayor has just declared a public health emergency because the flu has gotten so bad in Boston. I remember a couple weeks ago you talking about this flu shot app. Can we use it? I'm like, absolutely. So I pointed him to the GitHub repository and introduced him to Tom. So GitHub has 3 very powerful features. The first one is called a fork. So if you think about a family tree, you know, mom and dad, the son, the daughter that form forks off the family tree. Same thing with GitHub. So Boston got a hold of it, created a fork, and created the Boston Flu Shot app. Because the app was open source, and because Tom had built it with redeployment in mind, the city of Boston was able to launch their version of the Flu Shot app in less than 36 hours. Didn't cost them anything but time. Didn't have to go through this rigorous procurement process. It was open source. They forked it. There it is. This is why we love open source so much. Because as we're making apps for our city, it's easy to export them to other cities. Another good example from Boston, Boston created an app called Adopt a Hydrant. So it snows, hydrant gets covered with snow, snow turns to ice, house catches on fire, fire department shows up, and has to spend time breaking the hydrant out of the ice in order to get to the hydrant and put out the fire. So Boston implemented an Adopt a Hydrant program where people volunteer to adopt a hydrant and agree to shovel out the snow after a snow event. You can name your hydrant. I call it my Fido. And that worked really well. So the city of Honolulu actually redeployed that app, but there's no snow in Hawaii. What Hawaii did was they changed the app slightly to be Adopt a Siren. So Hawaii has tsunami sirens, and they're run on batteries, and people tend to steal the batteries. So if there's no batteries in the siren, and God forbid a tsunami comes, this could be a very bad thing. So when Hawaii got a hold of it, they altered it to Adopt a Siren, had people adopt their sirens so that whenever they did the monthly test, people could be on the lookout for them and could report if something went wrong. The number of reports they had for sirens that weren't working doubled. And this wasn't because there were more people stealing out the battery, it was just because the city was more aware of what was going on. So this was awesome. So when Boston got a hold of this app, they made some additional changes to the app. And they said, hey Tom, we've made some changes, we think you'll like them. We would like you to pull our changes into your app. This is called a pull request. So Michael Evans, who works for the city of Austin, changed a couple things, and then Tom goes, yeah, that looks good. And he pulled changes into the main repository. So this allows us to work very collaboratively on projects. So I'll work on one piece, Dan will work on another piece, and then we'll pull all the changes into the main app. The third really powerful thing about GitHub is issues. So even if I don't know any code, and I don't, I can still participate in sort of the building of the app by putting up issues whenever I see a problem, or whenever we want to talk about an enhancement, or we're setting benchmarks and want to see how we're doing. We can do all that from GitHub's platform, and all you need is a login account. So I've thrown a lot of stuff at you with open data and open source. Are there any questions so far?
So more on the forking. When forking, does that just give you a separate page with the same code that you would edit?
Correct. So it literally, when you do the fork, the GitHub's cutesy animation is literally a copying machine. And so you'll get everything in the code base into one that says your username / the app project, and then you can change it to your heart's desire and it won't affect the original app. Other questions? Nope. Okay.
Does anybody here, go ahead.
Okay. So all the city data is there, and then there are these willing hackers, but like, if you didn't know that there was a fire hazard problem, like, how would you know what's the problem to develop something around? Or is that just all organic and just hackers?
And that brings me to the next part of the presentation. Nice segue.
That'll be $5.
So admittedly, we are a geeky bunch. We hang out at tech spaces, we are on our computers all day, we have GitHub accounts. But if we're geeks making things for geeks, we're not always solving the problem. The best Civic apps that have come out of Chicago have been apps that are developed in collaboration with community partners, nonprofit organizations, city departments, community activists. What we try to do is we try to build these Civic apps around the needs and challenges of the front line, people who actually do the work of solving the civic problems. Good example, and my current favorite, is a site called expunge.io. So last summer, Smart Chicago worked with Make the Challenge to run a civic youth program, teaching high school students about civic technology. At the end of the summer, we had them break out into teams to come up with app ideas. One of the app ideas from the Juvenile Justice Council was an app to help people expunge their criminal records. Apparently, all these youth get arrested. They go out and later and apply for jobs.
To be clear, not all of the youth.
Or not all, not all.
Oh, sometimes it's just
A lot of youth. So I should have said
a bunch.
a bunch.
Subset.
A great number of youth, whenever they get arrested, even if they're not, even if it doesn't go to court, it still shows up on the juvenile record. And so when they run the background check and it has been expunged, they can't get jobs. This is a big problem. Now the law's set up to where if you stay out of trouble, you can have your juvenile record expunged, but the amount of people that actually take advantage of this is way too low. So Chris Rudd at Make the Challenge started talking to Smart Chicago about a project, about bringing the project to fruition. We got in touch with a developer named Kathy Ding, who started building expunge.io. So it works almost like one of those quizzes you take on BuzzFeed. I was 17, a long time ago. Oh, whoop. Sorry, I usually do that right. I was under 16, saw a judge, wasn't dismissed, tried as an adult, got supervision, completed it. I'm much older than 18 now. Oh, whoop. older 18. Don't have anything going on. But look, based on my answers, I am eligible to apply for juvenile expungement in Illinois under subsection 1. So now it gives me the simple web form, which you've probably seen 1,000 times, particularly if you interacted with us, because this is a WUFU form and we love WUFU. So when you fill out this web form, it actually sends you to Legal Aid Foundation Chicago. One of the things that Legal Aid Foundation Chicago does is help juveniles or help people with juvenile records get their records expunged. Previously, they hadn't had a lot of people contacting them, even though that's one of the things that they do. Now with this form, they're getting a lot more contacts. So once they hit this, someone from Legal Aid actually contacts them, gets the ball rolling on their juvenile expungement, and helps solve the problem. The magic with this app is not the technology. It's not very fancy. It's built on Twitter Bootstrap. It's using normal, everyday, pretty standard technology. It's not going to win any whiz-bang technology awards. The magic of this app is the community partnerships that were a result of the process. The youth group working with the developer working with Legal Aid Foundation, making all the connections to that actually solve the problem. This sort of exemplifies what we're trying to do when we're talking about civic hacking. It's not just about the technology, it's about the community partnerships and actually getting the work done. So there is a large community organizing element to civic hacking. It's not just code and data. So I usually give this talk at the OpenGov Hack Night, which is every Tuesday at 1871 inside Merchandise Mart. We've been doing it for about 2 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. On the site, you can see all of the projects that come out of the community, including a lot of Smart Chicago projects like the Chicago Health Atlas. There's Joe Drumunska, that's a timeline app. And then my personal lunchtime favorite is their sewage in the Chicago River. So we'd love for you to come to a hack night. We'd love it even more if you come to our event tomorrow, downtown in the Loop. We're having it at K Cura at 230 South Clark. So are there any questions about civic hacking or anything I went over? I know I've thrown a lot of stuff at you all at once.
Does anybody have anybody at their centers who are interested in this world and do some of this stuff? Or
I could jump into mine too, because I think that this, we'll talk about how your centers can get more involved too in
Awesome.
In this world. And then most of my time is really discussion with all of you. So I'll talk a little bit, but we really want to talk to you and hear from you guys about what you're doing.
Ben or no?
Go ahead,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm George from the Chicago Public Library, and I'm part of the legal lab that we have there, where we have digital 3D printers and some laser cutters and some other machines. And we've had a few meetups with some of the other organizations in Chicago that have similar technologies or as hacker spaces or have those kind of tools for the public to use. And at our last large meetup, we discussed maybe, and it's been tossed around for quite some time, is building like a hub for us as a larger community to share resources, have a central calendar of events that can showcase all the events happening across the city and maybe some of the outskirts of the city, and a variety of things that we could host there. Andrea, I think, sent me your email, and I made contact with you. That's why I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that's how it came. So I'm here to get some idea of how this functions. I'm using Derek Eater's map in the website that we're building. I would like to use it a little more like We Connect Chicago has their setup with filters. So I'm working on just breaking that down. And I have it posted right now, but we haven't put in all the information to get it to where anywhere just yet.
That's awesome. Let's definitely chat after the.
Sure.
Other questions before we move? Switch.
All right, next up is Danielle Dumera.
Right, and I apologize ahead of time for the name of my presentation. Everything is a platform. So I'm Danielle Dumer. I am the Director of Planning, Policy, and Management at the Department of Innovation and Technology in the City of Chicago. And I've been in that role for about a couple of years now. So in that role, I do oversee IT policy, and that includes our work with public computer centers, our work with building the digital skills of our residents and making sure that residents have access to technology resources. You can learn more about what we're doing in general in that space if you go to the city's technology plan, which is not part of this presentation here, but if you're interested and you haven't viewed it yet, go to techplan.cityofchicago.org and take a look at all of the different initiatives that really are about really getting our residents what they need in order to succeed and improve economic and community outcomes. Prior to this position, I actually worked on a variety of things. So among them, and I've worked with some of you here, on managing our Broadband Technology Opportunity Program grants, which were grants that allowed us to expand access, public access to technology citywide, which we worked very closely with the Smart Chicago Collaborative on both projects, so both our Smart Communities program and our Public Computer Centers program. And so, there's a lot of information about what we did in that program as well that I can also point folks to, but it's not the point of today's discussion as well. I also was I actually managed the city's data portal from 2010 till probably the end of 2012. When I handed that over to Tom Shank and John Levy, but worked with our former CIO and former CDO, Brett Goldstein, to release over 400 data sets that are on the city's data portal that Chris referenced just a bit ago. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about what you guys do. So obviously this is not news to you. You deliver services, right? So you provide access. You're delivering digital skills training, and in some cases you're also delivering training that's beyond just basic digital skills. We're building deeper technology skills in some of our residents. But you're not just about that. So the point is they come in, they learn these digital skills, but for an outcome that they're seeking. It's not just technology used for technology's sake. It's all in service of an outcome. So a couple of the things we talked about that you are doing without maybe actively thinking about it. You are actively thinking about helping them get jobs, or that's a huge outcome, obviously, with folks who come into our centers. But some of the other things you're doing is just building an audience for our digital tools. So some of the tools that Chris showed us before, was MyCarTote, Expungio. Once you have trained folks that come to your centers, they now will be equipped to be able to use some of the tools that community members have created to help solve problems. And really, all of that is in service of fostering civic innovation in our community. So I'm going to talk mostly about how you're doing that right now, whether you're aware of it or you're not aware of it. All right, so some definitions, and I think Chris obviously went through a lot of this, and I stole some of this. This is not this is not me trying to redefine something. I think there's a great article on Code for America's website that talks about civic hacking and also calls out a definition by journalist Alex Howard about what civic innovation is, which is, I think, a really nice definition. So it's about taking an idea, technology, or methodology. So it's not all about technology, and I think that's one of the points I really want to hammer home. Civic innovation is not all about developers coding and creating a cool new app. That's not the point of everything. The point of it is actually solving some kind of a problem, right? So we're looking at challenges, and we're seeing what can we do to improve on those challenges and processes. And how can we work together? So nonprofits, government, individual developers, or whoever the subject matter experts are. How can we come together, collaborate, and solve a problem? So, civic hacking, I think Chris has obviously done a great job of going over that, so I'm going to kind of move quickly over that. But really, it is about challenging the government in many ways, which obviously I am a part of, to work more creatively and effectively. So, if you look at the open data portal, which is our next definition here, it really is us just making information available at a very basic level. So we're making information available in a format that's open, that allows people to do a variety of things with it. Now, that isn't always easy for some folks to use, as Chris alluded to. So that's where the civic hacking community comes in, and where we can take that information, look and see how it may be able to help solve a problem, and we get to that civic innovation. So then open government in general, I also wanted to call out, because we also have a meetup that Dan and Joe Jamriska run related to that, and some of you may already be members of the Open Gov meetup, but I encourage you to also get involved in that if you are interested in this space. But open government really is about being accessible, transparent, participatory, and collaborative, and I want to highlight the two bottom areas there, because that's where we get involved in the civic innovation sphere. So just to go back to Chris's example about was my car towed. So when we were working on releasing that data initially, I think we released it. It was updated once a night initially, but that's not incredibly useful to someone whose car just got towed and they need to figure out what happened to it right now, right? So we worked with, we talked to some folks. I think we talked to Scott Robbins, saying, well, what can we do to improve upon that? Can we make can we release that data more frequently? And so we did. We looked and we saw what we were able to do, and based on the infrastructure and the site that we were using, we were able to get that up to a 15-minute increment. So every 15 minutes, that data set updates, so that when you go to wasmycartowed.com, the chances of your information being really relevant and when you need it right now is much, much higher. So any questions about some of this stuff before I jump in? So some interesting things. So the New American Foundation, they have an Open Technology Institute, and they actually looked at some of Philadelphia's public computer centers, community technology centers that they called key spots. And one of the things they noted, and I think they called it an unexpected outcome of the program, which I thought was an interesting way to put that, was that public computer centers, community technology centers, were really hubs for community engagement. So it wasn't just about coming to teach people technology. People were identifying their own personal needs, but they also identified community needs, which I really want to highlight here, because those community needs, even beyond the personal needs, is one of the ways that you can really, the fact that you know about those community needs is one way that you can better engage in the civic innovation sphere. It's also a place where people develop skills and then turn around and develop the skills of others in their community. And we've seen this anecdotally through our Smart Communities programs and others, and I'm sure you all have stories related to this as well at your public computer centers. So essentially, you've created the perfect environment here for civic innovation. So the idea here is that your centers are not only public computer centers or centers for community technology centers, but your centers for civic innovation. So you're a place where people come together, and it can be community leaders or other members of the community, and they may have a variety of skill sets. People who are experts in community organizing, people who know how to develop software, people who know about education or understand the problems and issues related to being a small business in the city. And essentially what you have is the ability in your centers to form sort of agile teams to sort of solve problems. So you've got all those subject matter experts, and you can look at an issue like the MICFA Challenge folks did. They came together as a community with the developers to say, I've got this problem. Okay, how can we work, how can we hack the process, or how can we improve upon the process? Because it's not always about the technology, right? It always starts with process, and that's something we always try to work when we work with our departments, even within the city, technology is not always immediately the answer. You can't take a process that's broken and just try to implement software. You're going to end up with a big mess, right? You have to look at your process first, and then you can look at how technology can better enable that process to happen going forward. So another thing that you can do to engage in this right now is if you're a place to test and improve some of the tools that have been created already, and that is something that Dan and Sonia and Kyla have really led the way in the country on by creating something called the CUT group, the Civic User Testing Group. And I think you've discussed this group before in the Connect Chicago meetups, which is for those of you who are new to it. The idea is that Smart Chicago Collaborative has reached out to everyday residents in the city and said, hey, come test some of these apps that we're creating. Tell us what we can do better, how we can make them more useful. And we've actually used some of the public computer centers, community technology centers as the locations to do that testing. And you can continue to get involved in that way through the CUT group by hosting those sessions. So that's really the main sort of overview. I just wanted to sort of set the stage for discussion. So, so really I wanted everyone to think about a few things. So the residents who come to your centers, what are their outcomes? Obviously we've talked a lot. There's a lot of our residents really want to get jobs or are looking to improve their own personal economic outcomes. But we also know as Hubs for Community Engagement that there are issues that are important to your communities that you're part of that are probably surfacing as well. So how can our centers help meet those goals and tackle those issues? And one way is to engage in and foster this ecosystem that we've talked about. So you may already be doing it, and it sounds like George at the Maker Lab is already thinking about how to do this, right? So one of the things I wanted to talk about is if you're already doing this, how are you doing this? So just want to open it up to folks. If there's, I know George, you talked a little bit about it. I don't know if you want to elaborate at all on some of the things you guys are doing.
For this, we're looking to move forward on it maybe by July. Right now, we're just developing the platform for it, or like foundation for it. But it's primarily a group of Northside hackerspace called Pumping Station 1. They're a hackerspace that charges a monthly fee, and they do have a free night though, but it's just a large center with a plethora of tools, hardware, and 3D printers and various soldering classes, things of that nature. Then we have Southside Hackerspace, smaller group, same idea. We have a Free Geek Chicago. They teach people how to handle computers and spread the word of open source. And we're really just trying to plan it out now. But we're looking to have an area or a place of information for the public to access. We have a small little forum right now where we discuss what is going on within the city. We just had a Northside Maker Fair at Sheriff's High School, and at Port City Mall there's going to be another Maker Fair on that end. So it's just a little community forum, a Google group where we discuss what's going on, and we're just looking to grow on that and collect some of the data. The library right now is at a position where the Maker Lab is just supposed to be a 6-month experience or an experiment that did really well, and the community really took to it. Tourists are coming in. We have several librarians from around the country or the world that have heard about it in some way, and they stop in. Libraries that are looking to develop their own maker centers, and they would like to get an idea of the space and see our policies.
So what's at this space? Can you talk a little bit about what the makerspace is comprised of?
Yeah, I can probably. I have a little, like, if I can get on the computer.
Look it up, yeah.
Absolutely.
While you're doing that, are you looking to create an online presence that directs people to locations?
Correct. Yeah, that's part of it.
Wouldn't it make sense, Dan, to look at how he could use the platform that's already there through Connect Chicago and just add his data to that? And then, 'cause that's
That-
already
that
built
would be a
out.
nice
So
idea.
I think
Yeah.
adding the data,
Mhm.
duplicating the data is good. We really want to focus the planning. Do you guys have like calendar of events there, or?
Well, and that's something you could go ahead and develop.
Right,
One of
right,
the
but
things
I
you
think
can
we
do is
could add
pass
that.
parameters.
Yeah.
You want to, on a search, you can pass parameters right to this environment, and
Okay.
it'll pop up, you know, if you're just looking for maker spaces,
Mhm.
so from your web presence,
Oh, yeah.
maybe has the calendar stuff, you could come right to this mapping function, because they've really got a nice mapping
Yeah,
feature here.
they
And then it's available to others who are coming as well
Yeah, that-
through We Connect Chicago, a space, and it's got, you know, there's the ability to build out other data in there as well about your space pictures,
Mhm.
you know, show the space and the equipment. It's already all there.
Right.
And so if you can figure out what's missing, you create, and then what's already there, you just
Yeah.
tap into.
And that does sound like a good idea there.
And actually, why don't you go ahead and show what you're going to show, and then
Okay.
I'll also talk a little bit about, we have a benchmark and toolkit initiative that's going to lead to some enhancements and changes to the Connect Chicago site, so that'll be a nice segue into that discussion. Go ahead.
So we're located right in the front of the library. Just outside of this is the entrance to the main area. We're on the 3rd floor. And when designing the space, they wanted it to be a co-working environment. So the camera is set on top of this table in the center where people just gather, talk. A lot of the staff is usually centered around here or towards the front with their laptops working on their designs or their classes. And as it rotates around the room, we have a CNC router machine that will mill into wood. We have just a flatbed scanner there, but we have four 3D printers. 3 are the same, and 1 prints in a different type of sturdier plastic. This is an eco-friendly, biodegradable plastic. We have 2 of these laser cutters. They're 40-watt laser cutters, and they cut into acrylic, wood. They etch into some small pieces of metal. They can engrave into some material, denim. It works really great on denim. And then we have vinyl cutters that work with a variety of different types of materials, from adhesive vinyls to great decals. A lot of the staff members and people come in to make decals for their laptops. That's been quite popular. And it can also do heat transfer for t-shirts, so people come in and sign their own t-shirts, engrave a little logo on there. And on the other side, we have a set of laptops. The laptops are running Windows 7. There's no need for reservation like on some of our other computers. And they're set up with a large set of open source programs. We try to enforce the open source programs that are free. That way it isn't a barrier that like they can come in and work on this, and then they could go home and download those same programs and not have to spend a single dollar if they don't want to. We do have some proprietary software that comes with the machines. That's usually free though too. And then at the front, we just have a large screen projector where we show the classes and our staff laptop there to demonstrate the classes. And it's not just these kind of, it's not all technology based. We have a lot of craft things. We have some gardening classes, some paper craft. So it's a wide array. And then we host all of our tutorials and all our classes on this Google site, where people can just come in during our open shop or during your own time to look at the classes that we have. And on that site that we are developing, we're looking to have something like this too, where the community centers can upload their own tutorials or their own guides, their own templates to share with the public and other centers.
And so, George, like, how do you see your Maker Lab as a good place for some of the civic innovation work to occur? Like, what are you seeing that happen already? What
The room where we're at is called the Innovation Lab. The project in there currently is the Maker Lab. It's a little confusing to some people, even to the staff. And the room was supposed to circulate with different projects. One of the other projects we run in the library is Geeks in Residence, and that was hoping they were hoping to get that in there, but it looks like we're popular enough and we don't want to get rid of it. The public has taken nicely to the Maker Lab. But we kind of thought if that could be a public area for co-working and maybe facilitate some of that civic hacking. And it does happen. We just need the crowd to get in there. But a lot of the crowds that get in there, like, there's a lot of co-working already on digital design and that kind of planning. There's a lot of people that come in there for prototyping, and that happens, but we haven't had the civic hacking scene in there just yet. But we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
And maybe if we facilitate some of those classes in that aspect, maybe we could see some more civic hacking.
Cool. Thanks, George. Good. Chris.
Are y'all still doing your civic? Because y'all had public good software, kind of as your civic hackers in residence or entrepreneurs in residence,
Geeks in residence.
or geeks in residence.
It is currently on hold. The first group didn't work out so well. Now we're looking to restart that again. We're working with 1871 to get a nice group, a nice startup to come in there. And if anyone wants to visit this, no. Well, we want them to have some spirit in it and really try. The trouble with the last group was that we didn't know where to place them. I didn't know where they were in the library, and no one knew they were there, so they weren't really popular. That is a short URL to access to this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I do like that idea. So you're suggesting host the directory on We Connect Chicago, or Connect
The
Chicago?
directory being what?
Okay, so right.
The
So
site?
Events, right? You're talking about events?
Well, the locations, right?
And
the general,
locations.
the general information about the location.
Yeah, I wouldn't remake that at all. I know, I was gonna talk to you about that when you were saying that. I
Okay.
wouldn't remake it at all. I mean, the library has a page on We Connect Chicago for every single branch. So
Okay.
to the extent that you have more metadata about a branch, meaning, more maker spaces,
Yeah.
definitely updating the page would be the better thing. And then to serve your purposes, I think probably a feature that you want is the ability to do a map of just your stuff, probably, right?
right. So we've taken to this template.
Yeah.
We had a different look, and then we've kind of taken it and just color switched it out, added a few different things.
What do you mean, you completely stole the
Yeah.
WordPress template? Love
Yes,
it.
we did.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, God.
on our on our original site, we wanted to add the tweets. We don't want to
That's
have
We're
it. We can all go
extending,
home.
we're
That's
extending
it.
federal stimulus dollars into the
it.
future, right
That is
there.
amazing, I didn't know you did that. Okay.
we didn't want to force anyone to write their own news articles. We didn't want to get someone there. We're not there yet where we have someone that can just write something up constantly. So we added the tweets from the local, some of the local places. Free Geek Chicago is there. Pumpkin Station.
Wait, what about us?
We have not added you.
What's the matter with us?
So there's a few things, and that's enough news for us, and it's live. You can
Nice.
update it.
Okay.
This is just a placeholder here, but we really just copied the directory. There is very little information since we're just building the actual platform. So as you can see, it's still just the demo.
Yep. Okay, and then this shows currently.
Currently, it's
Your
a small list. Yeah, and it's just our locations that we
Okay.
have on there.
All right, so good luck with this. So I think if you added the information to the detailed pages for each library,
Okay.
and then we have been talking about, and this can actually morph into the next portion of our, we're talking about making upgrades to the We Connect Chicago locations map. One of the things we've wanted on the list for a while is the ability to make a subset, to do a search, and then do a widget, right? What if this page was just a full-size view of only your stuff?
Yeah.
right? But it pointed to the detail pages
Okay. Yeah.
on our site,
Sure.
so that we're, it's still a comprehensive place, but it's like, it's completely customizable to you. And don't lie, would that be acceptable, or do you really just want your own thing?
No, I think that would work well. I don't know that I want to bounce people back and forth between your page and our page.
Well, that's what I mean, they could pull it in.
Okay.
It'd be a totally,
If
a
they
widget
could
that
pull
would
it in, I
completely
think
live in your site.
then that would work better because from this map, we would want their own little page set up on the site as well, where they could have their own resources. We kind of want them to manage their part. We would just try to ask them to keep updating it and make sure that it's still valid. But yes, I like the widget idea.
That's a nice thing.
Yeah.
And if you do even that within Connect Chicago, there's already security for managing your own pages and stuff. You would have to build and manage all of that.
Right.
And then those pages are still accessible to
On your
anybody
site,
that
yeah.
comes in.
Right, anybody who, not if they're approaching it from a maker perspective.
Right.
And would really help this group and this movement of Connect Chicago, because then it will just add more, we need more people to take ownership of their own pages.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then it makes the entire resource more robust, and not just from a internet page point of view, but from this point of view, learning from each other, right? When someone sees it, each one of these are located within a branch, which offers 35, 40, 50 other.
These are not branches, actually.
Oh, these are, okay, so
These are centers, like
Okay.
To the
they're.
What is that?
That's
So
Free Geek.
this is Free Geek right here
Oh,
in
Dick.
Milwaukee. This is Free Geek. What is this? This is. I'm not even familiar with that one myself.
IAEOU.
Right. Then we have Blue 1647, and I think this is going to be like Southside Hackerspace. Then there's the one in Port City Mall. Down here, Level Up. It's a place for teens.
Oh, yeah, she was here last month.
Up north, there's the Workbench. There,
Ha. Okay.
and then
All right, we gotta talk about this.
Yeah.
We gotta do the right
Conversation
thing.
on it.
Yeah, it may not be right. We'll see. But that's amazing. That's a lot of work. Way to go.
and some of the other things we wanted, resources. Since this is still just a preview, it's just a layout, but we wanted some resources there so people could access them. And this would hopefully point to the site of the organization that was hosting the tutorials or the guides. We would want to back that up in case, for whatever reason, they weren't in existence in the future. Council should read community, but this is currently just hosting the Google group. We would want some public forum, maybe a vanilla forum, or
See, but this is the concept, right? You just got some JavaScript for the tweets, you got some
Yeah.
for this, and if we could offload the mapping.
yeah, that may work
might be
out.
helpful then. Okay.
One thing that I would like to get your contact information, and same
Yeah.
for I know I have your email. I do have to be somewhere at 1, so I don't know that I would be able to stay
no problem.
long after too long.
Grab 3 sandwiches on the way out.
Does anyone else want to hear?
Yeah, anyone else want to share some of what they've been doing? Go back to. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I can just kind of tell you what we do in our organization. I know I need a lot of help. I just don't even know how to put my thoughts and questions right now. I was actually really good at poking me and being like, okay, this is where you should go, or directing me. But I work for Chatham Business Association, and I'm the project manager for the Get Connected program. And I've been trying to come to these meetings, and somehow my schedule always messes up. So I'm looking at it.
All right.
So that's one, and I hope to come to the next few on a regular basis. So our main focus is small business development. I started with the organization about 3 years ago, and I started meeting with the businesses, and the key point in the Chatham businesses in the South Side is they're missing that technology. They don't have an online presence. They're scared to show social media. They're scared of a lot of different aspects of the online presence. So
we created the Get Connected program where we train small businesses in email branding, social media marketing, smart business technology, which includes like the different apps and tools out there, and website development. So we have like a curriculum that's somewhat developed. We keep adding on to it as we go, as we run into the roadblock. And then starting this past December, what we started to do is incorporate the youth into this training. So we started the IT Ambassador program, which is a train-the-trainer program. So now I am training four youth in the area they've already been trained in the same 4 categories, so they now know how to assist the businesses in all those categories. And they're actually helping me further that curriculum. So now we've thrown in, Instagram, Pinterest, all these other social media sites, and they're what's kind of nice is they're helping me blend that connection from, they use it on a social platform, and obviously the businesses need it on a business platform. So businesses and the students are kind of meeting in the middle where you can use it as a tool to kind of expand, bring in more income for the businesses, use their time. A lot of them are, constantly running and don't have the time to sit down and just really understand and plan out the rest of plan for the future, I guess. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm listening to a lot of this. We have used like the open source data to find like business licenses and all of that. I like that people are taking that data and making it a little bit more user friendly, because I've used that data. It's not that easy. You've got to filter through a lot of things, know what you're looking for. But that's kind of us in a nutshell. We need help, but we're also kind of moving forward. But that's about it.
Awesome. What data have you used that you had issues with?
What do you mean?
You said that you've used it yourself. The idea that people make it easier to use.
So what kind of happens is, because now the city wants the small businesses to also find all of their resources, apply for their licenses all online. What happens is they usually come to us and we have to navigate them through it because they're not familiar with using everything online. They're used to driving all the way down there, walking into an office and being assisted. So that's kind of the trouble that we kind of run into, but which is what we're here for. So first, it's like we have to familiarize ourselves with the program so that we can assist further with us.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. We have a tech center with 22 computers, and it's somewhat open. It's more, we're there Monday through Friday, but more Tuesday through Thursday we have a more concrete set of hours where we can walk in and connect with questions. But what we're trying to do is we don't have as much customers coming in as we would like, not customers, but people coming into the lab as we like. And part of it is I think we need to get the word out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
And I think the other part there.
Are you running a program to use this summer? Is this just an ongoing?
Yeah, it's an ongoing. So we have 4 that are going to help me train the next incoming group of students. So I am getting 5 more starting June 23rd. So they'll only be here for this summer.
Don't worry about that so much. I mean,
Yeah, it's going to be kind of as we can get content.
we're in, we go a little bit, or whatever, it's just a couple months, that's wrong. Don't worry about that. It's just if we get into it.
That's it.
20 some hours.
I don't even know where the questions are, but like, so right now we're at, like the technology training. I don't even know if I can actually call it technology training. It's at a very basic level. I mean, it's just getting them used to it. It's more like digital literacy, and trying to take it a step up. But what I want for the students is to have, and I think it's starting to spark now, like what IT means, what that technology background can get you, where it can take you, how it can get you into so many different fields, how that's where like the future is going, where the money is. You can start your own business that way if you learn it right, and it's not that hard to grasp if you have an interest in it. So I wanted to get them a little bit more technology training, like coding, a little bit, maybe even app development. It's bringing in resources.
Yeah, they're at the office.
Okay, so one of the other points I wanted to bring up was that, and one of the things that came out of some training that happened in the smart communities, so Auburn Gresham, Chicago Lawn, Englewood, Humboldt Park, and Pilsen, was something called Civic 2.0 training. And so the goal of that training was really to help people, and it was more aimed at sort of nonprofits and community groups, community-based organizations, about how to use technology. But so it's sort of the next step up from that basic digital literacy skills was to how do you use the city's data portal. How do you use social media to organize? How do you, and so it's very similar to what you're talking about, sort of for the business audience too. But in terms of sort of fostering sort of civic participation and the ability for folks to engage with government websites, the Civic 2.0 training actually, and we have a basis there that can be shared amongst folks who are interested in. So if they have to interact with the city and the city sites and these places, there's already some training that's been developed that you can then leverage and pick up in your organizations. And so, and I think that kind of brings us into the last piece, which is talking a little bit about the city's benchmark and toolkit initiative, which is really going to be built off of this Connect Chicago platform. So the idea here is that we've got the Connect Chicago site, and it's great, and we want to make it better. We want to provide, we want to set a benchmark for our folks about our community areas for internet use. We want our folks to get their skill levels up. We want them to be using the internet and being part of that economy. And the way that happens is through your centers. So there's the toolkit, and Connect Chicago is really that platform for that toolkit. And it's all of the good work that people have been doing, but using the Connect Chicago site to share that amongst one another, right? So Dan, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that then, and kind of jump in thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, talking about making improvements to Connect Chicago. And so someone just from a software point of view, and some conceptual changes as well. One of them is, this entire, I just love this map, because again, we've seen so many maps in Chicago that are unequal, or, that have differences that show disparities, and this is a map of great set of resources. So it's a very asset-driven map, right? Talking about all the places where you can use a computer for free. One of the things we're interested in, especially in the context of what Danielle was talking about in expanding and continuing digital literacy programs, is having a neighborhood layer, right? So this is all just there's no geographies at all. These are all just points. So adding a geography layer so that we can think about what resources are available in particular geographic units, and then what might be missing, what might be what kinds of when we can see all of the maker spaces. Oh gosh, which we have more. Well, we can see specific types of training. Danielle, you talked about the Civic 2.0 training. Well, we know that that's available in a certain subset of areas, and we also know that it's useful for everybody. So we're thinking about making updates in a map to be able to see it in a community area, and then to get further refined on particular types of training that are available at different places. Particular types of programs. It's going to require, obviously, a lot of work on behalf of centers to be able to, tell us exactly. Like we get an email, Christopher, we got that email from YMCA. What's the name of that?
I think it's the YWMCA. Or I'm sorry, YWCA.
The Girls Can Code program. So they sent us a PDF, and we need better ways to be able to share this kind of information. Right now, we're kind of performing that function, and we're happy to. But pushing down the editing function to the different locations so that they can talk about what they have available. And then once that happens, we can see, again, what the needs are, what the gaps are, what the, for lack of a better term, best practices are, what kinds of training is working. I just uploaded 15 sets of really robust training on LibreOffice that Greg Sutton and his company made around 3 of their tools: the Calc, the open source word processing. 15 really in-depth, really pretty good pieces of training. We just uploaded them to the internet, and we're putting them on Connect Chicago. And when we see all that in one place, it'd be pretty powerful. So we're wondering, so that's kind of an overview of the change. I guess there's one more, which is, there have been studies, including one was just released today, a 3rd version of the study of internet use here in Chicago, created by Karen Mossberger, who's a researcher who has done a lot of work in studying internet use in Chicago and internet adoption at home and things along those lines. And we can see benchmarks, basically. We talked about benchmarks and toolkits. So we can see benchmarks of internet use, and we can see where we can make improvements. So that's another way we're going to change the site, is to add sort of a benchmark component to see. I mean, you referenced in some, you recognize needs in business community in being able to use the internet to talk about their own businesses. There's benchmarks for that, right? There's, you have a website, you get 10% of your business leads from the website, things along those lines. Those are the kinds of things that we're really interested in, is just getting a little more serious about goals and seeing where we're at. So those are kind of a summary of the thoughts that we have. We're wondering, are there any things that you'd like to see out of Connect Chicago? Another one I think would be a flat-out feature we'd add is this ability to copy-paste a map and be able to show pages on anybody's website and make it look like it's a part of that website. It's seamless. So that was an important feature that you had at the end, which was, we don't want to click and then go back and forth, and we'd like it to be a seamless experience. So that's definitely something we'll capture. Is there any other features that you'd like to see out of this website? What do you guys think?
Did you think having a resource library with training materials and other things, tools that people are using to help run their centers more effectively would be useful to you? Or are there particular areas where you have needs that you'd like us to focus on in terms of those resources?
Well, how broad do we want to go here? Because if we, I apologize, what was your first name? If we go with her economic development side, tools for small businesses that are already ready-made types of things that maybe they're already building and have available. So a like business on the south side can use the north side businesses tool that they've developed to help with their community marketing or whatever. I think that would be really powerful to take it to that next step of community development if we're really stretching beyond the pure technology side of things here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the feature would be more tools and resources of existing.
Yeah, beyond just the technology, because I think it's always been an uphill battle that we may never win in trying to get the mind share of the small or even mid-sized business folks to learn about technology. But if we have solutions available to them to meet those needs that we've tried to train them on to go back and implement, when the reality is they're spending their time just keeping the doors on and opening lights on. And then I think that helps us address that issue of trying to train them in the bits and bytes and really help them more with business development.
So after they leave their training, they have this resource
Right.
to go to leverage a WordPress template or whatever it happens to be. Is that kind of what you're thinking of?
Or maybe we're not even teaching the technology side. We're teaching them here's these tool sets that help you with your business, your existing business operations or growth, and that's what we're teaching them on, and less about how. Here's a WordPress template. Now, when you go away, you've got to carve out 3 or 4 or 5 hours of your time to try to create something. You leave with it, or leave with the resource, maybe those youth that are in some of your programs. Here's the group of youth that are now going to help you build that website for you or web presence for you.
So what would we have on the site? What would that look like then?
Yeah, I guess it would be a subset of these locations. If your location is now on the besides the technology center, you have other locations. Here's this type of business training,
okay.
right?
So that makes sense.
And then part of that is tools that are available. So.
Awesome. Got that. Anybody else just want a feature point of view?
Language filter. Showing which locations speak Spanish, which locations speak Polish.
Yep. That would be nice.
Because we know they're out there.
So there's the 3 initial filters there. Do they then does it expand to a subset of filters from there?
It doesn't, but you got access to the data. You can create, as I mentioned before, in it's not live yet. They're looking at the design, but for the Chicago Literacy Coalition, we just send parameters to the data and populate the the map in a view on their website on their CCOL. That's the learning one. That's CC something or other literacy website. So because you have access to the data, you can create whatever filters you want on your end. And then you just send those parameters to the data, and it comes back and you can populate.
But there may be some additional things we need to add too.
I asked this because if it were to be a widget of sorts that could be embedded on our site, when they would visit that our version of the locations tab, when they get there, the default filter would be like if there was another check mark there, it would be say hackerspaces, for example. But it would show our locations by default because all the bubbles may confuse people. They're not. If they're on our site, they're probably looking for those kind of centers and not necessarily just free access to the internet. And not all of those centers are free. Some of them do charge a fee. So if they can control those filters on that end, on our end, on our site, they're not all free. Our center is primarily for adults at the library, but there are youth-oriented.
All of that data is in the data set on here as well. Whether there's a charge, what population it serves, age ranges, all that kind of stuff is there as long as it's populated.
Right.
That's the struggle, is to get everybody. I mean, we've dealt with that by discounting or something. And frankly, not to mention here, there's a lot of offers.
That is one thing that we have a concern about. As soon as we put it up there, will it be outdated in 6 months or so? Do they no longer serve those users that they move to a different model?
Well, that's that's one of the reasons why we, with the literacy folks, we are using this data set instead of creating our own, because now then we have to maintain it. The concept here is that folks are maintaining it, whether they do or not.
Yeah, and one thing we're thinking about is just reaching out to them on a frequent basis, and that's why we have our own community forum where a lot of the members of those organizations do keep in contact with one another there. So we're hoping that will just keep them focused on keeping their information updated.
So you can't see it from the public view, but when you log in as an admin or as a super admin, there's a section of the site that actually shows you all of the changes that have been made to the site. And so it's one of the ways we can see what's been updated recently. What I'm planning to do is at least once a quarter to kind of go through all the locations to make sure they're all there. I know the library, we had one location, one of the library branches are closed for renovations for the summer. And so we altered that page to indicate that that's now closed, but kept it in the system just to show that it will exist again. So I just wanted to point out on sort of the backside of this that we do have a way to see what's been changed. And then hopefully or not hopefully, sometime this summer I'll be like calling all the locations again just to make sure that they're still there.
One of the nice things would be, probably, it was talked about earlier, an events type of thing, and again, not that we are looking, there's so many events things out there now, but there's so many organizations that don't have the functionality of events in their web environments. So if it's something that they could hook into that then is available as well in We Connect Chicago, I think that's a valuable tool.
To be able to put when training classes are occurring and things of that nature.
Right. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of it, sometimes you go to some of these websites and it's just text on the website as opposed to data, dynamic data. But if there was a tool here that then could be used locally but populate data within Connect Chicago, I think that'd be great.
Okay. Anything else? Wow. Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to dominate, but
Keep going,
someone
Ray.
else is talking.
You got good stuff.
It would be, much like some of the volunteer portals, things like that. It would be really interesting to have a place for folks that need help with, whether it's their website or whether it's something else, to come and submit, and then organizations who maybe have youth or others that they're teaching, technology might be able to access those projects to help other organizations, whether those are local community-based organizations or some of the small businesses around that have a need. That would be an interesting component, again, that gives people an opportunity to apply what they're learning, as well as get other organizations some benefit in their business.
Okay.
So one of the things that I know we've talked about in these meetings is resource sharing, sort of among public computing centers. So we have sort of links to online resources on the page. Would y'all want sort of, even if it's hidden underneath it, like an ad, once you log in as an admin, would you want a way to sort of offer resources to other public computing centers on the site, or is that something that may sort of need to be worked out sort of on a different level?
Just on a related topic, one thing we plan to do is host, aside from linking to those resources that they have, is maybe hosting them as backups. Like I mentioned earlier, they may not exist in the future, those organizations, and maybe a place just to archive those documents. That may be an idea for you as well.
Chris, you're thinking like people resources. Is that
Right.
kind of what you're thinking of?
I think it was
Yeah.
maybe not the last meetup, but the meetup before, talking about sharing like personnel resources. So instead of having one center having to hire a full-time IT manager, being
Right.
able to share that person among different locations, so that it's not as expensive, because that was one of the challenges that some of the smaller centers faced in the fact that they need staff, or alternatively, like everybody pitching in to get a bigger licensing deal for different software packages and things like that.
So, talking about a listing of needed resources, maybe is what you're indicating?
Yeah, or needed resources and/or resources offered to other centers.
That you're willing to share. A platform to do that, a public platform to do that.
Or maybe even
Which
semi-public.
is similar to what Greg, I think, was talking about some, a place to submit needs and a place where other organizations, so the same kind of functionality there, right?
Right.
Just one is more internal amongst organizations, and one is maybe more for
Right.
your client to leverage.
Yeah. So that's what we're up to on that. Anybody coming to a National Day of Civic Hacking thing this weekend?
Could you maybe just talk about like the spectrum of events or activities that are going on?
Christopher?
Sure.
Even if like it's not us.
Yeah.
Who else? Okay.
Actually, I do have to get going
Okay.
quite soon.
Good seeing you.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Does anyone have any business cards anyway? I don't have any on me at the moment.
All right.
I'll just send an email.
That's me. Good seeing you. Thanks.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Let's. Okay. So there's a bunch of events happening. The one I'll be at is the National Day of Civic Hacking in the Loop. We're having it at the offices of Kate Cura at 230 South Clark. It's going to be a 2-day event, 8:30 to 5. We start serving breakfast at 8. We've broken each day into 2 sections. In the morning, we're going to have speakers from frontline organizations like the Chicago Area Red Cross talk for maybe 15-20 minutes about their day-to-day operations, what they do, what their needs are, what their challenges are, and then the rest of the hour is going to be Q&A. In the afternoon, we'll all form teams, get together, and brainstorm prototypes and wireframes for possible apps to solve the problems discussed in the morning. It's a 2-day event. We're going to have Jonathan Lowen from the Chicago Police Department speaking, Harry Meyer from the Southwest Organizing Project, showing off some of the data that they've collected. We're going to have Aaron Stevens, who's the volunteer coordinator at the director of volunteers at the Lakeview Pantry. So we've got sort of a wide variety of topics that are Saturday and Sunday. The event's designed to where if you can't make it Saturday, you can come on Sunday and not be completely lost. So if you can only make it to one day, you can make it to art. You can make it to one or the other. Dan's going to be at the Agro Hack for Youth event. This event is sort of goes all day. It's being sponsored by Teza. They brought together youth workshop participants, problem owners, and hackers together to come up with solutions for solving issues that affect city's youth. This is their second year in a row that they've done this. I was able to catch the presentations last year, and they were great. Other things going on is Blue 1647 in Pilsen is having sort of a free space all week. And so it's a co-working space. Anybody can come in there during this week and work on a civic hacking project for free, no registration, no entry fee required. So that's going on. And I think, so that's just here in Chicago. There are about 123 events happening around the country, and you can follow the progress of those events on the Twitter hashtag #HackTheChange. Any questions about the events or anything going on?
The 1647, was that for this current week or the next week?
This current week and weekend. How wise was it down? No. So that's 1647. Name 1647 because its address is literally 1647 South UI. Any questions about events going on this weekend? Cool.
Well, that. Oh, hold on.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
Yeah,
good
come
seeing
on.
you. Anything else that anybody has to share? Yeah. Summer, right?
Yeah.
Close.
Wait, yeah,
Close.
the pool's open. With that, perhaps we will adjourn our meeting.